Welcome to episode 291 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director William McGregor. He's from the UK and just finished a historical, slow-burn horror film called Gwen. We talked through his early career and how he was able to get this film funded and ultimately produced, so stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 291. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline and query letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing writer-director William McGregor. Here is the interview. Welcome, William, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Hey, Ashley. Yeah, thanks for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up on a farm in Norfolk, which is a very rural, flat part of the UK, and just always enjoyed drawing, taking pictures, being imaginative, and that just led to mucking around with a handycam and just sort of making films about the kind of world around me growing up, almost documentary to begin with, just as a kid. And then I kind of gradually realized that you could make films, watching behind the scenes and listen to DVD commentaries and things like that. I realized, this is actually a job you could have. And then I just kept making short films. I studied art at university, which is sort of a screen focus. So we got to make short films and just kept making short films, really. I must have made like 20 to 30 shorts before I started working in commercials and then TV drama. And alongside that, for the last 10 years, developing the feature script for Gwen off of a short film called Who's Afraid the Water Sprite.
I gotcha. So let's talk about some of those early short films and how those eventually were able to transition to paid work. Maybe talk us through that step. So you're producing these short films. I assume, you said you made about 20 or 30. So when you're doing numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and probably 10 and 12 and 13, you're just self-funding them. You're just using whatever equipment you can find. At what point were you able to make that transition to professional commercials and stuff?
So yeah, the first stuff really was just learning, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just having fun, just making them for nothing. But I feel like each film got slightly better. And then, when I think it was my second year at university, I saved up a bit of money through doing just sort of corporate videos for local businesses, like really low-end basic stuff, but using the uni kit to make a little bit of money to finance a short film. Don't know if that's technically what we were supposed to be doing with the university kit, but it was all helpful.
Yeah, you got to make it happen.
Yeah. So that meant that I then had a bit of a budget for this short film, Who's Afraid the Water Sprite, and that probably was about $6,000 that I saved up with some friends to go and shoot that. And that was one of the kind of bigger short films that I made. It wasn't the last short film that I made, but that short film specifically was seen at a student film festival by a producer called Hilary Bevan-Jones, and I was just talking to her during like a drinksy networky thing, and she said how much she enjoyed the short film, and we just got talking, and that was the start of a few meetings discussing how I think I was in my third year of uni then, but how we might start working together to develop a feature film. That was probably around 2009, 2010.
I got
So
you.
really, it was meeting her just at a student film festival that
Yeah.
began the whole process.
And how many shorts had you made before making that $6,000 short?
A few. Like, I was pretty prolific, but just because of I enjoyed doing it. I wasn't doing the knowing that I was sort of laying the ground. It wasn't like intentional practice and groundwork on a journey towards becoming a film director. It was just having fun and making things. I think it was when I was at uni that I started to take it more seriously and think about how I could start a career, and that really sort of pushed me towards entering the film festivals, going to all the student film festivals, entering any film competitions I could, and that's actually where I met most of the people that have helped me later on in my career.
Yeah, perfect.
Beginning of my career.
Yeah, no, perfect. I think that's a great sort of description of how you got started. So let's dig into your latest film, Gwen. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick pitch or a log line. What is the premise of that film?
Kind of slow burn, anti-capitalist folk horror about a young girl growing up on a farm in the Industrial Revolution. Her mum's unwell. Her farm's in, the risk of losing that to the quarries that are growing around them, and really just asks, what is it that she should be afraid of, losing her home, or is there something else going on with her mother? Accusations of witchcraft. And it just becomes a very kind of slow burn, atmospheric, sort of dread-filled journey into something folk horror-esque.
Yeah. Where did this idea come from? What's the genesis of this story?
I've always enjoyed fairy tales, and Who's Afraid of the Water Sprite, the short film I mentioned, that was very much a conversion of a fairy tale. When started out as that, it was very medieval and really was almost like a Company of Wolves type film, very influenced by Guillermo del Toro. But as I kept writing, alongside that, I was exploring North Wales and learning about the landscape, learning about the history, and the sort of clearances for the quarries during the Industrial Revolution really piqued my interest. And the story changed from being a fairy tale into something that has sort of folklore roots, but is much more sort of grounded in history. And I don't know if I can call it realistic, but it sort of it moved away from being a fairy tale.
Yeah. And so as you're doing this research and you're kind of figuring out you want to do a feature film, are there things that are guiding you? And I'm talking about sort of like the marketing. Were you talking to distributors and trying to see what they could sell? Were you just trying to follow your passion, things that were interesting to you?
Yeah.
What was sort of the guiding light in deciding what feature you were going to work on?
So we've got the British Film Institute in the UK, and they're quite unusual in that they don't think commercially. And I think it is a positive thing, but it also can mean that perhaps in the UK we might have a bubble of artistic films that necessarily don't work in the same way that sort of American genre films would find an audience. So they're basically incredibly supportive for you to experiment and do your own thing, which I think, with Gwen is fantastic because you get a kind of cross-genre film that isn't horror, isn't period drama, somewhere between the two. There's a lot of debate over what the film is, but there's not really the same amount of awareness or focus on a market or on audience expectation. That's actually something that I've learned through screening Gwen that I will be using in, even from just down to distributors, who's distributing it, how they're distributing it, conversations with other distributors. I've learned through Gwen in terms of how I might think about things in my next film without letting go of my own thumbprint, how to make a film that can reach out to a broader audience. But really the focus, I think, with the BFI on the first film scheme is just to let you run it and see what you can do. And they are supportive and they help you to tease out your ideas, but there's sort of zero thought to the commerciality of the film.
And so tell me again, what did you call? It's the UK Film Institute. What is this organization called?
BFI, British Film Institute. They're a really incredible organisation in the UK that basically are a custodian of film in terms of presenting it, preserving it, and then finding new voices. And they're pretty special and unique, really. But they give you a real platform to.
Yeah, and we have not-for-profits here like the Sundance Institute. We do have some of the, I think, similar type things. But tell me, so how does a UK filmmaker, how do they apply to BFI? Are you submitting a short film and saying, I want to turn this into a feature film? Are you submitting a screenplay? Are you just submitting a resume? How does someone apply to get the fellowship?
For me, it was a long process. I was really lucky. I met our exec, who's been incredibly helpful and like guided me along the way, really, Lizzie Frankie at the Berlinale Film Festival. But I wasn't there with a film in competition. I was actually there as a Berlinale talent campus, so basically there for the week to study film and to watch films. And she did a sort of round table, and I met her there, and then just sort of added her on social media online and stayed in touch. And she would have seen my shorts, you know, through my Facebook or what have you. And then I applied for development financing probably in like 2012. And we got the development financing. And then that was probably 6 to 7 years of like working with them, developing the film. I was also going off and working in TV drama, so I wasn't doing it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a kind of a slow process of sort of them helping me to realize the script. It definitely wasn't an overnight thing.
Yeah, and so then eventually you get a script that everyone's happy with. Do they then help you find funding for the actual production?
Yeah, so then you apply for production financing, and you're not guaranteed it. Just because you've had BFI development doesn't mean you'll get it. Sure. And they can only, I think it's like 40 to 50% of the production they can finance. They can't do it all. So you're celebrating. You've got your BFI funding, they're backing you, you're really excited. We're really lucky as well. From a long time back, we had Film Wales from Cymru supporting us, so they put in a bit of money. And obviously you have your tax breaks. We've got like 20% tax break in the UK, but we still had a gap, probably like 40% of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So my producers were out, talking to potential other financiers. And we're lucky to have found Great Point Media, who came on board, helped out with the rest of, and they were our sales agents as well.
Yeah.
So it was sort of piece by piece, and even when you've got some of it, it's no guarantee you're then going to make it.
Sure. Yeah, that's part of the game. So let's talk just briefly about your writing process. Where do you typically write? You have like a home office? You have a coffee shop you like? Where do you do most of your writing?
I'm stood in my home office, which is basically the second bedroom of my flat that I've just sort of filled with things that just make me feel at home when I'm writing. So yeah, just come and sit in here. But I probably only do like 3 or so hours a day. I can't write for very long, and a lot of it's probably just daydreaming and thinking. And then I'll come in here and sit down and just slog through it.
How much time do you
spend?
Kind
of the process I'm going through now.
Yeah, sure. So how much time do you spend preparing to write versus actually in final draft? How much is sort of the outline index card stage versus how much is in final draft actually writing scene descriptions and dialogue and stuff?
I think I probably spend quite a lot of time doing that. I think I could probably spend 2 to 3 months just writing a treatment, an outline, doing sort of beat cards, reading around the subject, like not that I'm a prolific writer, I've got one film and writing a second one, but if that's anything to go by, that's kind of the way I work. Mm-hmm. And then go and explore the landscape, and it is a lot of kind of groundwork, and then follow the outline, but then often deviate from it. And I find one of the things I'm always finding a balance with is I love genre, but I'm trying to twist the genre. But how far can you twist a genre until you've basically broken the formula and it no longer works? And I'm writing Revenge through at the moment, and it's just sort of interesting, like what things you can change. You change too many things, and all of a sudden it's not conforming to the genre anymore. And I find that a constant balance.
Yeah. So what did the development process look like at BFI? Did you get like assigned some more experienced writers, and then you're sending the script pages to them and getting notes? How did that development process work?
So my producer and two producers at the production company, one of which started out as a development exec and sort of graduated to being a producer during the time of developing Gwen, so that those two, and then at the British Film Institute also had an exec producer and a development exec there as well. And actually I had two different development execs during my time there, because people, move on to different jobs or move on to different companies. So two different people that I'd worked with as development execs there as well. And then, Film Wales and Great Point Media, were giving their feedback as well. So you would get quite a lot of feedback, and just sort of, they weren't ever too specific. And as I say, it wasn't really, when I work in TV, I know that my notes are to explain things to the audience, and they're often about exposition, whereas the notes weren't so much about that. They're actually, one time I wrote an ending which was a slightly less aggressive ending than Gwen currently has, and actually I was nudged back towards the original, and the note was just no shock and awe, remember why you're making the film. So often their notes are quite supportive and just helping you helping tease it out from you and giving you confidence, which is sometimes a lot of the problem, is actually having confidence in your own writing.
Yeah. Were there ever notes from BFI that you just simply didn't agree with? And how did you handle sort of some of those situations? They're funding this development process, they're helping. So I'm sure you don't want to look like the jerk director who only sees his vision. But how do you handle that if there's things that you don't necessarily agree with?
I can't remember a note that I categorically disagreed with. I think the bigger problem I have is when a note's really good, but I know it's a lot of work, and you just think, oh, that's right, but I have to, if I do that, then I need to rewrite this whole bit. And then you just have to sort of sit down, process it, and then just crack on again. I think they're the notes that are the hardest.
Yeah, for sure. Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like? How can people see the film, Gwen?
So it's out in the UK at the moment. The release was 19th of July and then 16th of August in the US, and I think it's day and date, so it'll be in a few cinemas, but then online as well. And then coming to Shudder like a couple of months after that, in October, I think, in the run-up to Halloween.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's definitely a film that has genre elements and folk horror elements to it. I was definitely inspired by folk horror, but then also period dramas. So it's one of those scripts that you're using genres, and it's just sort of how you balance that. Was always the tricky thing.
Sure. What's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I'll round up for the show notes.
Yeah, I'm just sort of William McGregor on Twitter, so if you put that into Twitter, it should find me. Yeah.
Perfect.
That's probably the best way.
Okay, perfect. I'll round that up and I'll put it in the show notes so people can click over to it. Well, William, I really appreciate your time today. Good luck with this film, and I look forward to following your career and hearing about your next film.
Yeah, cool. Great chatting. So thanks, Ashley.
Thank you. We'll talk to you later.
Right.
Bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
I just want to talk quickly about SYS Select. It's a service for screenwriters to help them sell their screenplays and get writing assignments. The first part of the service is the SYS Select Screenplay Database. Screenwriters upload their screenplays along with a logline, synopsis, and other pertinent information like budget and genre, and then producers search for and hopefully find screenplays they want to produce. Dozens of producers are in the system looking for screenplays right now. There have been a number of success stories come out of the service. You can find out about all the SYS Select successes by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/success. Also on SYS podcast, episode 222. I talked with Steve Deering, who was the first official success story to come out of the SYS Select database. When you join SYS Select, you get access to the screenplay database along with all the other services that we're providing to SYS Select members. These services include the newsletter. This monthly newsletter goes out to a list of over 400 producers who are actively seeking writers and screenplays. Each SYS Select member can pitch one screenplay in this monthly newsletter. We also provide screenwriting leads. We have partnered with one of the premier paid screenwriting leads services, so I can syndicate their leads to SYS Select members. There are lots of great paid leads coming in each week from our partner. Recently, we've been getting 5 to 10 high-quality paid leads per week. These leads run the gamut. There's producers looking for a specific type of spec script to producers looking to hire a screenwriter to write up one of their ideas or properties. They're looking for shorts, features, TV, and web series pilots, all types of projects. If you sign up for SYS Select, you'll get these leads emailed directly to you several times per week. Also, you get access to the SYS Select forum, where we will help you with your logline and query letter and answer any screenwriting related questions that you might have. We also have a number of screenwriting classes that are recorded and available in the SYS Select forum. These are all the classes that I've done over the years, so you'll have access to those whenever you want once you join. The classes cover every part of writing your screenplay, from concept to outlining to the first act, second act, third act, as well as other topics like writing short films and pitching your projects in person. Once again, if this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, please go to sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. Again, that is sellingyourscreenplayselect.com. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing director Nick Ham. He just directed a film called Driven, which is the story of John DeLorean. So we're going to talk through that film as well as how he got into the business. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. Anyway, that's the show. Thank you for listening.